Alright guys, so in previous chapter we talked about how to edit polygon objects and create your own meshes, own objects, and we modeled a couple of things. And now we are going to talk about modifiers which are available in modifier properties over here. Now, as the name suggests, the modifiers can modify your objects, okay? And there are several kind of effects available, and you can try these out, like all of them, and see what their effects are. But to get started with this, I'm going to test out few of these modifiers so that you understand what is the difference between editing a polygon object and creating an object with the modifiers. Okay, now the main reason is after you're done editing an object with edit poly, let's say if I create this thing and I make a couple of duplicate, okay, or let's say if I create a screw effect over here. All right, now once I'm done editing, I cannot change this. That is one thing. And also I can't animate this. Okay, this is not a procedural effect. This editing is done in the mesh, and I can't come back and change it or animate this value. But what modifiers do, they add a working modifier over here. Like you can stack them one by one and combine them to create some very interesting effects. And those modifiers always stay here until you collapse them and merge them with the object. Okay. And the benefit of using modifier is it gives you procedural control. You can tweak like each stage of construction back and forth, and you will not lose your geometry at any time. And also you can key all those values and create some nice animated effects. Now let's just test out few of them. First thing I'm going to create is one simple cube. Okay, move this up and go to edit mode and just make a shape like this. I'll create one inset and extrude this out and scale it down. All right, now let's go to modifier properties, this icon over here, and I'll apply one array modifier. All right, so as you can see, I have another copy of this. Now you might be wondering what is going on. So this array modifier, it creates duplicate of your object in an like a array effect. All right, as the name suggests, you have the copies of your same object. All right, and there is much more to this. You can change the offset in any dimension. All right, and let's say if I make it something like this. Now, as we talked about the procedural nature of this, if I go to edit mode and change this shape, you can see the change is happening in all of these, because these shapes are driven from this one. Modifier is used on this one. So at any moment, if I want to come back to this, and let's say if I want to make some changes over here, so I can easily access all these parameters and tweak these however I want. All right, so I'll press backspace on these parameters just to reset them. So another shortcut to remember, the backspace, if you want to reset any value. Now I'm going to add another array modifier on this, and instead of X offset, I'll apply 1 in Y. All right, and I can maybe decrease this value. Now you can see this looks like maybe a chocolate bar or something. All right, so I just created this simple object, and you can see I have this whole geometry now. All right, now you can modify it further with let's say the second modifier, bevel, and you can see all the corners are smooth now. I can change these, and also in array modifier you can use merge to merge the duplicates. Now I can no longer see the seams over here. So I'm going to change the width of this bevel a bit more, and maybe you can increase the number of segments like this. All right, now let's keep this one aside over here and see some more parameters about this modifier. Each of these modifiers have two very important things. One are the object coordinate controller. Most of these modifiers have, like, you can assign controller which is used for transforming the modifier, and one is the vertex weight. Okay, and we are going to discuss the vertex weight first after this modifier before proceeding to others. Now let's say I have multiple copies of this. All right, now what I can do is I can bring one empty object over here, and this is like right now the object origin is over here. All right, so whatever I do is it's happening from this point. Now what I can do is I can assign object offset to this point, and now if I change, like now if I move this one, you can see the array modifier is working according to the position and transformation of this empty object, which is like a helper. All right, not just the position, I can also rotate this one, and you can see how the interesting forms are being created over here. I'll reset the R, and all right, and you can see there are so many possibilities just with this one. Also you can apply like a start and end cap, like you can use some custom objects for the start and end one. All right, all these modifiers, they might look very simple at start, but if you have a look around and at any object or any repetitive pattern you have, you can maybe, like most probably, you can come up with a solution, and you can break it down with a modifier. For instance, imagine if you have something like okay, I'm just going to create one plane, and I'll create one inset and extrude this. All right, extrude this one and create something like this. Now I can extrude this out in y direction and create something like this. Now I have something which looks like a wall and a window. Okay, now what I can do is I can use array modifier to create one entire building out of this. Now imagine if I add one more array modifier, and instead of just like before, I use vertical duplicates. And also if I go to the top view and bring one empty object over here, so let's see if I can modify this further. What I'll do is I'll create one now I'll go to the top view and I'll create one empty object over here, plane axis. Now in the first array modifier, I'll select this one as a driver, I mean for transformation. All right, now I rotate this in 90-degree, yeah, something like this. Now you can see if I rotate this in z direction, I can use this I can create something very interesting, like a different kind of a building. Like instead of just a flat one, it's a very simple object, but combined with modifiers, you can create so much from just a simple modifier. Okay, so I'm just going to delete this one, and now the next modifier we are going to discuss is a Boolean modifier. Okay, now to clear out the concept of Boolean, I'm quickly going to create one UV sphere over here and a box. Okay, and now I'll apply Boolean on this box, and from the object I'll pick this one. As you can see, okay, I'll just hide this one, and you can see the object which we used for Boolean have created this nice cutout in this geometry. Okay, if I bring this back and change the visibility of it, and in object property I'll make this bounce, so you can see I have this very nice Boolean effect going on over here, and it's updating interactively when I move this object, rotate it or scale it. Okay, and now I can go to edit mode, and if I make a duplicate of this, you can see there are two cutouts. Now I can maybe combine multiple shapes and create something which is like a very interesting looking, or Boolean actually is mostly used for hard surface modeling to create something like machines and all. All right, there are a few other parameters. You can use difference or intersect, You can see right now it's only picking up the intersection. To make a good use of Boolean, I'm going to bring a cube, move this in Z direction and make it flat like this. Okay, now I'll move this in X direction and make it something like this, and set the origin to geometry and reset the position. All right, I'll rotate this in 90-degree in top view. I'll bring one more cube over here and scale this down and rotate this in this direction. Go to the edit mode, move this in a normal direction like this. Okay, now I can use array modifier on this one. Before that, right now it's taking the local coordinates. What I can do is I can apply all transform, and instead of X offset, I'll use the Y offset and increase these number of copies. I'll change the gap to maybe 0.7. Yeah, and I'll place these over here. All right, what I can do is I can apply a Boolean modifier on this one and change the visibility of this to bounds, and you can see I have these nice cutouts. Okay, now I'm trying to create a Game Boy model over here with just the Boolean. So I'll go back to global and select all the faces, and I just want to decrease the cutouts size. All right, now if you see, now when I'm increasing the number of copies, this is like interactively, this is a procedural effect. Okay, now all the modifiers over here are going to work on this Boolean, and this Boolean will work with can work with all other modifiers over here. Okay, most of it. Now one more interesting thing we can do is we can apply mirror modifier on this, and you can see the cutouts are happening on both sides now. Okay, now for this to align, for this to pick up the center, I can choose this object, and instead of X I'll try Y. Now I have cutouts on both sides. Now if I increase the numbers, you can see, now you can clearly understand what the benefit of working with modifier is. Now let's go to top view and bring a cube over here and place it here, right here, and I can maybe make it not so tall, and I can create duplicate of this in edit mode. Now I'm creating the duplicate of this in edit mode so that I don't have to apply too many Boolean modifiers, and I can work with only one, and these two are one objects for now. Okay, I'll place it over here, and I can make a duplicate of this again and make another button over here. Select linked faces with L, Shift D, R90. All right, somewhere over here. Now I can use one more Boolean modifier and pick this one and change the visibility of this into bounds, and you can see I have more cutouts for screen and other buttons. Now the fun part about this is now if I go back to edit mode, let's say if I want some radius over here, I'll select all these edges, and now if I create a bevel and come back to my object mode, you can see the cutouts also have a bevel. All right, and this is very interesting. Now I can maybe bring one cylinder over here for buttons. Now I can apply one array modifier on this one, apply one more array modifier, and change this to 0 and this to 1, and change the copy this offset. Okay, and I can give it some bevel like this. Okay, I'll go to top view and press R 45-degree. Okay, now I can use these buttons to create a hole over here as well. I'll select from the Boolean and change the visibility option to bounds. Okay, and what is happening over here is some problem with the bevel, I guess. Okay, so I'll switch off bevel for now, I think there are some topology issues. All right. And I'll create a duplicate of this and change the visibility option back to bounce, back to solid. And I can apply these modifiers now because I don't need them anymore. Now when applying modifiers, you should always apply them from top to bottom, like this one, the topmost first, and then after that bottom one. Okay, otherwise the effect will not work as you have planned. Now I can select all these, and in shrink, where is the shrink? Yeah, I'll use the shrink tool like this, and I can select all these top loops, create a nice bevel. All right, and move these down. Now over here what I'll do is I'll create a cube and scale it down like this. This one is for the control handle. I'll add 2 loop cuts and maybe bring extrude region and create a plus sign like this. And I can apply one more Boolean modifier over here and choose this shape and use this as bounds. Okay, now let's go to top view, scale these down as well. Now you can see if I had modeled all this and if I wanted to scale down the buttons and all, it would be very difficult. I think I'll have to undo everything. Now I can select all these edges, yeah, and create a bevel over here. All right, I'll create a duplicate of this and change back the view to solid. Select all these and I can shrink them down a bit, and I can also give it some bevel over here. All right, shade smooth. Now for the buttons, I can select all this geometry which we had created earlier for the buttons and all, and make a duplicate of this. All right, and change the settings to solid, and I can use shrink on these. I think I'll do it one by one. I can use a shrink for this one and create a nice bevel over here. Yeah, I can shrink this as well and create bevel. All right, and this one I can maybe delete this face and delete this face as well. Select all the faces, these ones, and do one extrude region like this. Now I can go back to my original geometry. Now if I disable all the modifiers over here, you can see it's still just a box. Okay, now I can select this edge and give it some bevel, and I can select these edges and give them a comparatively small bevel. And if you want, you can give one bevel over here as well, maybe just 4 segments. And if I disable the overlay, I think I have pretty decent looking Game Boy model, and it's not bad. So for this one we used mostly Boolean modifier to create all these cutouts, and we used array for these. We used bevel for smoothing out the edges, and we used mirror modifier to mirror the duplicates from here to here. And yeah, I think this is pretty good. Now you understand the magic of using the modifiers together, and this is now modifiers are not just for modeling. You can create any abstract shape out of them, and these are like very good for motion graphics as well. Alright, so I'm just going to disable this collection we have for this. I mean, all the objects are whatever we have created so far are over here. So I'll disable this one and maybe create a new collection, and this one is for screw modifier. All right, this one was for bool. Now for screw modifier, as the name suggests, I think you might have guessed it already. Okay, let me show you the effect with a very simple one. Let me create a plane over here, and I rotate this one in 90-degree like this. All right, let's bring one screw modifier from here. All right, and I can change this to any other axis. Okay, now what is happening is screw modifier is taking my geometry and creating a spin out of this, and you will be able to see better effect if I use the screw parameter from here, and you can adjust these number of steps and number of angle you want in this one. Okay, what is happening is right now the origin of object is right in the middle, so it's taking rotation from here only. So instead of that, if I select this object and go to the active tool properties and select the origin and change the origin to somewhere over here, then the screw modifier is taking rotation from this point, and now you can see the effect much better. All right, so what I'll do is I'll simply increase the height of this screw and the angle over here, and change the number of steps to 500 maybe. Okay, maybe I want 5000. All right, now the threads of a screw are usually very sharp, so I can select these edges and scale them down like this, and maybe it's not so deep. I can move this out and scale these down as well like this. So you can see the effect is happening everywhere. I'm on this screw modifier. Now I'll bring one cylinder over here. Before that, I'll press Shift S to bring my cursor to selected. Now my cursor is in the middle of this object. Now if I create one cylinder, it's going to be right in the middle. I'll disable the pivot, the origin modification from here, and now I can create one extrude in Z direction, another extrude in Z direction, something like this actually, and then I can create one more cylinder and change the sides to only 8 sides, and I can move this over here and make it something like this. For this one I can use bevel like this. Okay, and the screw modifier is not just for this purpose. You can actually, if you are aware of any woodworkings, like there is a process called lathe in woodworkings. Let's say if I bring a plane over here, okay, and I rotate this in 90-degree, and I can delete all these points and create my own shape. Let's say if I want, let's say if I want to create something like a bulb. Okay, so I'll click over here, and click over here. Okay, and now if I apply subdivision, now my edges are pretty smooth. Okay, these are polygon edges, these are not curve objects. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll apply one screw modifier on this one and change the direction to Y. Now you can see it's taking the entire shape and rotating this in 360-degree. Now if I change the origin of this object, let's go to the active tool properties and change this to center of the screw modifier. Now you can see, as I was planning to make one bulb object, you can see I have a bulb. Okay, when I change the shape of all these points, this screw modifier is updating everything in 360. Now I can change this shape however I want, and like you can create so many surfaces from this, like can of soda. You can create a lamp out of this, any like chess pieces out of this. There are many possibilities. Okay, this shape is just for clearing out the concept of screw modifier. I'm sure you can come up with a better shape. I'll have to disable origin from this here. Now let's place it over here, and for this one I can just for fun purpose I can isolate this one, object, set origin to geometry, shift S, cursor to selected, sorry, and bring one cylinder over here, change the sides to 32 and use Boolean on this. Okay, change the visibility to bounds and exit the isolation mode. Now you can also duplicate this and change the the angle to something like this. Okay, now for this shape I'm going to select all, rotate these inward so that there is a negative and positive. Okay, now I'll disable this collection as well. Now let's talk about few of the other ones. Okay, the next one we are going to talk about is the simple deform modifier. All right, so let me create one very tall pillar, something like this, and add a lot of loop cuts to this so that there is enough mesh to deform this. Okay, now the origin is in the center, keep that in mind. Now let's say if I apply simple deform from here. Now right now it's using twist mode. There are three other ones: bend, taper and stretch. Now if I change this to Z direction, now you can see the effect clearly. As I increase the deform value, it's creating a nice twist over here. Okay, now if I go to active tool properties and change the origin of it, this twist modifier was taking origin of the actual geometry. Now look at the way it behaves when I change the origin. Okay, now right now it's taking this point to deform the object, and I can even rotate this and create something like which is very abstract. But every time it's not very convenient to actually change the origin of your object. There might be some other things linked to this object and it could break the hierarchy. Now what you can do is you can assign a different object as an origin. Let's say if I click over here and bring one empty simple object. Okay, this is an empty object. Now if I select this and axis origin, if I click over here, now you can see it's using this one for the center of rotation. All right, now I'll create a duplicate of this and I'll disable this one. All right, I can just leave it for now. Now let's apply one more modifier, which is the same simple deform, and for this one I'll use the bend object. Okay, and you can see if I use a 360 value, I can create like entire 360 bend. Okay, and just like before, you can define any other axis if you want. Like let's say if I use this one, let me just decrease the bend, and if I rotate this object, now this bend modifier is using this empty for rotation. Okay, but I'm going to reset this one. I'll use the before I reset this, there are a few parameters over here called limits. Now right now the effect is taking place on the entire geometry. You can limit this modifier. Let's say if I want the bottom to not get affected so much, I mean the top part. Now you can see the top part is very straight. Okay, and I can use this for other side as well. Like I think this will be much better example over here. Now if I change the top and bottom limit, you can see how this is working. I can limit this modifier's range from here. 1. Alright, and I'll use 360 over here. Okay, so these were just two effects, and there is one more, and which is to taper the object, and one is for stretching the object. You can explore these options if you want, and I will encourage actually to explore all the modifiers available. And like, if you want a quick help about modifier, you can simply go to the modifier and press F1 on the keyboard, and this will open Blender manual and the list of the modifier. Actually, this is for any tool. You can hover over any tool and press F1. It will bring up the this manual. Okay, now you can check out what these modifiers do. You can click on them and just have a look at this. Okay, it's very useful and very detailed manual. Okay, so I'll delete this one, and I'll delete this one as well, and I'll bring this to center. Okay, now I can increase the number of twists if I want, and I can also animate this value. I can create 700 twist, maybe something like this. So I'll save this one in one more collection called simple deform. All right, and drag this into this collection. Let's talk about one more modifier called wireframe. Now, as the name suggests, it creates a wireframe from this object. Okay, and now you can see the entire object is actually, the entire object's mesh is converted into a wireframe. All right, now I can go to the some other matcap view maybe, or I can just increase the thickness of this. Now you can see this is a very interesting effect, and it's a still procedural effect. Now if I change the twist of this modifier, it's working with the wireframe as well. All right, now you might have noticed most of these modifiers have this vertex group option over here. Okay, now let's talk about what the vertex group is, so that we can do some more detailed work with modifier. Okay, now I'll bring up a plane over here, and I'll bring up a special context menu with a W, and subdivide this many few times. All right, now just like in object mode, let's say if I have a cube and if I have a icosphere. Okay, now I can create a selection. Okay, and maybe combine them, separate them, and make a group out of them. All right, but let's say if you want to create some effect on this plane, but you don't want the entire plane to be affected from this, and you want to define like where it should, which vertices or which faces should be affected from the effect. Now for that, you can do is, let's say if I press C on keyboard, create this selection. Okay, and now if I go to object data properties over here, you can see there is a thing called vertex groups. Now if I click on vertex groups over here, and create maybe give it a name S group. Okay, whatever vertices are in this selection which are forming S. And now if I click on assign, now what is happening is these vertices have the weight of 1 and rest everything is weight 0. Now to have a look at this, we are going to weight paint, and you can see the one with the vertex weight of 1 have a red value, and the blue ones are unaffected. Now let's say if I go back to object mode, and if I bring a wireframe over here, now if I select S group from this vertex group, now you can see all these vertices around have value of 0, and these vertices which are in the vertex group S group have the value of 1. Okay, now to have a better look at this, I can increase the factor, and you can see the rest of the mesh is still there, but the value is working in relation with the vertex groups parameters. Okay, and this is a very fun way of working when like you can create very detailed objects with vertex groups. All right, this one was very simple example. If you go to the modifier list over here on the left, all these like most of these ones are related to vertex weight, like a vertex weight edit, vertex weight mix, vertex weight proximity. Okay, now what these can do is instead of only having one static selection of a vertex group, these can dynamically change the vertex weight. Okay, now to clear this concept, I'll create a duplicate of this, and I'll create one more vertex group over here and call this proxim. I'll press tab on this and select all these vertices and assign into proxim. Assign, and I'll delete this one. Okay. Now if I go to vertex paint, the weight paint, my entire object is red because all the vertices are in this selection. Okay. I'll select proxim from here, and let's go to the object mode. Now right now all these vertices are being affected because this vertex group have all these vertices in the selection. Now what I can do is I can bring vertex weight proximity from here and move this up over here before this modifier. Now I'll change vertex group to proxim, and over here I'm going to bring one torus object. Now as the name suggests, what this modifier does is it works in approximation with other object. Like let's say if I pick the target object and define this torus, alright, and change the distance to geometry. Now you can see, okay, to increase the visibility more, I'll change these parameters a bit. Now what's happening is, now when this object moves close to this object, the weight paint of these vertices is becoming more stronger, and it's working in approximation with this object. Now let's say if I want to hide this visibility, if I select this one and go to the weight paint, now you can see all these vertices near this torus object are red, and if I go back to object mode again and move this up over here, I'll go to the weight paint. Now you'll see it's no longer active. Okay, so this is very dynamic parameter. You can use this in many way. Okay, I'll change the factor to something like this. Now let's say if I bring one I'll bring a simple deform modifier over here, and from the vertex group I'll select proxim, and now what is happening is the twist parameter is only working on these vertices which are in approximation to the torus object. Okay, now if I increase this value, let's say if I want more twist over here, now you can see when I select the torus and move it around, it creates a very interesting effect. Twist is only working on these objects over here, like this. So imagine the number of possibilities you can have with this. There are a few more modifiers over here to edit the vertex weight, and we will talk about the vertex weight edit in a moment. Now I'll create a duplicate of this and remove all these vertex weights. I'll go back to something subtle in the matcap, and let's talk about displace modifier over here. Okay, I'll isolate this object. Now what this modifier does is it displaces the mesh for the given strength over here. Now this might look simple at first, but it's not actually just moving the object, it's moving each of these vertices in given direction, and this direction can be controlled with a texture parameter over here. Now if I click on new, and now this texture I can edit from the texture property. If I click on this icon, and from here if I select displace texture, and from here if I bring some texture like Musgrave, and sorry, I'll change this to maybe Voronoi, and I'll select all these and subdivide it further. Now you can see the mesh is using this texture to displace it, and I can control, animate this and create some very nice procedural effect. I can use this to create maybe mountains. I can use this to create some very organic looking surfaces, and this is like one of the very powerful modifiers. Alright, now if I change the modifier from here, you can see I already have some stone looking thing over here, and if I apply a subdivision surface, now the fun part about this is animatable. Like you can animate this, or you can change this at any moment. like this. Just like other modifiers, if I click over here and bring one simple empty object, and if I go to modifier, in the texture coordinates I can assign this to an external object from here. Now if I scale this object, it scales the texture. If I rotate this, it rotates the texture. If I move this, it moves the texture. Now let's have more fun with this. I want a marble texture over here. Okay, now you can see this is such a nice organic effect, and you can also use vertex weights with this. All right, just like I said, the vertex group you can assign over here. If you want to work on only these vertices, you can make a selection, just like how we did with these objects over here. All right, now let's say if I bring one torus, and if I select all these vertices and create one group from this and assign the vertex weight. Okay, now I'll create one more modifier over here, vertex weight proximity, just like before, and move this on the top level. I'll select this control object just like before. I'll select the vertex group and change this to geometry. Now right now it's not working over here. That is because yeah, from here displace, I need to select group 1, and now if I move this, I'll increase the strength of this object. Okay, now you can see it's working with this object. Yeah, so I can tweak these parameters over here and create something more interesting. Now if I move this torus over here, let me just bring back bounce. So this effect is totally procedural and you can animate this. All right, and if I scale this down, let's say, and if I make a duplicate of this, you can see I have now it's adapting to the shape. And whatever modifiers I use on these torus objects, let's say if I use a simple deform and give it an angle, it's working on, it's updating the displace modifier as well. All right, now the same thing but a bit different effect. I'll bring a cube and I'll try and combine the Boolean modifier with the displace modifier. Now over like let's say if I scale this in, sorry, in y direction like this, now I can subdivide this mesh a few times, and what I can do is I can bring few UV sphere over here and use the Boolean modifier for this. I'll just go over here, apply a Boolean modifier and Boolean this one. All right, and change the display setting to this bounce. Now if I scale this up in something like this, now I can make a multiple copy of these. All right, and you can see my Boolean is updating. Now let's add few of these booleans, and if I disable this, you can see this looks something like a cheese. Okay, like what you see in typical animated cartoon version of the cheese. All right, and what I can do now is I can bring one more, just a simple sphere, and I can apply a displace modifier on this. We bring up a Musgrave texture and maybe subdivide the geometry a bit more. All right, and then you can Boolean this again from this. If I apply one more Boolean and Boolean this geometry and change the visibility to bound box, now you can see I have very interesting cutout from the cheese over here. Yeah, Now I can go over here and apply subdivision surface and shade this smooth, and I can select this Boolean object and shade this smooth as well. And you see we have a very nice looking piece of a cheese. So I think you understand the concept of stacking modifier together and working. Alright guys, so I'm going to stop here today at this moment, because I think we have covered quite a number of basic of modifiers, and this could be a lot to process with if you are working for the first time with the modifiers. So I hope this gives you an idea of what modifiers are and what their use is and how they work together if you stack them. And the number of possibilities are endless. These are just some very basic few examples. Now I'd encourage you guys to just go and check out this list over here, and out of all these, what you can do is you can play around with this list over here under the generate category. Okay, this category also have some interesting modifiers which you can play around with, like a cast, hook, and displace, wave modifier, and but I would say don't get into any of these modifiers under the simulate category. Okay, you can leave out this category, simulate category, for now, because this is a very detailed topic to talk about. Like each one of these modifiers are very deep subjects. Okay, I'd suggest you just play around with these modifiers and see the number of possibilities and come up with different shapes, different abstracts. You can just do some quick search about different kind of forms and try to achieve them with the help of modifiers. And also, if you have any questions, you can just write it down in the comments below. So in the next chapter we are going to talk about materials. So I'll take this scene and we'll shade each of these objects and talk about materials and textures and also the UV. Okay, we'll also paint a bit of a texture on this Game Boy model. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope to see you guys in the next chapter. And like always, do share your work for the modifiers day, and you can tag me on the Instagram with instacrossmind, and I'd love to see you guys what you guys come up with. Okay, so thank you and see you in the next chapter.